Alright, today we're going to be doing another Lorcana draft review. We're going to be doing just the rares from Winterspell. In case you haven't seen it yet, we've already done the commons and the uncommons, so be sure to check those out. Without further ado, let's get started. Starting out is Mickey Mouse, a 2-cost inkable 3/2 that produces 1 lore when questing. He says, whenever this character quests, put the top card of your deck face down under him. And when this character is banished in a challenge, you may put all cards that were under him under another chosen character or location of yours. This is a good way to support your boosts, but it's probably not all that great unless you have boosts. I'm going to give him a C. Next up is Ruben, a 2-cost inkable 1/3 that produces 1 lore when questing. He says, Exert. Remove up to 2 damage from chosen character of yours. For each 1 damage removed this way, you pay 1 less for the next character you play this turn. Not only does this protect your guys, but it makes your characters cost less. Unfortunately, your guys need to be damaged first, but it works well with cards like Mulan's dad. I'm going to give it a B. Coming up is Duke Weaselton, a 3-cost 3/3 that produces 1 lore when questing. He says, when this character is banished, you may play a character with cost 2 or less for free. Duke Weaselton lets you play a guy for free and replace himself. That's pretty good. I'm going to give him a C just because he has to be 2 or less. Next up is a 3-cost Eliza Maza, a 3-cost inkable 4/4 that produces 1 lore. She says your character's strength can't be reduced below their printed value. She also has the Stone by Day ability, meaning if you have 3 or more cards in your hand, this character can't ready. Now, I doubt Stone by Day will ever really be relevant in Limited, and protecting your character's strength is important here, so I'm going to give her an A. Next up is Genie, a 3-cost inkable 3/4 that produces 1 lore when questing, has boost, and this character gets +1 lore for each card under him. I think you need to get as many cards under this guy as possible, and make sure you remove as much damage as possible. Keep him alive, and once he's got 5 cards under him, you can start questing. Give him a B. Then we've got Goofy, a 3-cost uninkable 1/2 that produces 2 lore when questing, and says, Exert, banish this character, banish chosen character. Now that means you can sacrifice him to banish a bigger guy, or you can just quest with him for 2 lore. I'd say that's good enough, I'll give him a C. We've also got Ling, a 3-cost 2/3 that produces 2 lore when questing, and says, pay 1, chosen character gets +1 strength this turn. This is a good ink sink for late game, when there's no cards in hand, turning any of your weaker characters into huge bosses. I'm going to give him an A. Following Ling, we've got Morty Fieldmouse, a 3-cost inkable 3/3 that produces 1 lore when questing. His ability reads, once during your turn, whenever you put a card under one of your other characters, put the top card of your deck face down under this character. And this character gets +1 lore for each card under him. Now this is just like Genie, so I'm going to give him roughly the same rating, but with a caveat. If you have both Genie and Morty Fieldmouse on the field, they will be boosting each other, because whenever you boost Genie, you can boost Morty Fieldmouse. If Genie is your only big boost card, pick Genie. If you have a lot of boost cards, pick Morty. That way you can boost your other guys and still get this strategy going. I'll give him an A. Following that, we've got Rapunzel, a 3-cost uninkable 3/3 that produces 2 lore when questing. She also has boost, and whenever this character quests, if there's a card under her, chosen opposing character can't challenge until the start of your next turn. Now this is a good control piece and only needs to be boosted once. She'll keep a character or a permanent on lockdown as long as she stays on the field and quests, but her willpower isn't strong enough to stay for long, so we'll call her a C. Alright, now let's move on to Timon, a 3-cost uninkable 2/3 that produces 1 lore when questing. He says, when you play this character, chosen opponent reveals their hand and discards a non-character card of your choice. Revealing hands are pretty much always great, and discarding one of those cards is also always great. However, this discards only non-character cards. Now, he gets down early enough to where you could discard one of the big actions or potentially one of the big board wipes, or maybe one of the little items that your opponent was holding on to. So I'm going to call this a low B. Moving on to 4 costs, we're starting off with a 4-cost uninkable 3/5, the Grand Councilwoman, who produces 3 lore when questing. She has a decent body for the cost, but also produces 3 lore, which is higher than average. I'd say there are better cards in the rare slot though, so I'm going to give her a high C. Continuing with our 4 costs, we've got Kristoff, a 4-cost uninkable 4/4 that produces 1 lore when questing. He says, when you play this character, if you have a character named Anna in play, you may put a card from chosen player's discard on the bottom of their deck. And, once during your turn, whenever a card leaves your discard, draw a card. This is a good payoff for all the cards that remove cards from graveyards in this set, and if you pulled a lot of those, I'd recommend putting this guy in to tie them all together. Even then, I'd call him a C at the absolute best. Let's continue with Todd, a 4-cost 2/4 that produces 2 lore when questing. He says, whenever this character quests, choose 1, gain 1 lore, or chosen character of yours gains evasive until the start of your next turn. Now, you can either protect him or give him a boost in lore generation. Even if you don't want to protect him, it's a good way to protect others. I think there's betters in the rare slot though, so we'll give him a B. Continuing on, we've got Willy the Giant, a 4-cost inkable 7/7 that produces 2 lore when questing. It also has Boost 3, and this character can't quest or challenge unless you put a card under him this turn. A huge body that can be played quickly is great. The downside is it needs boost support, but the 3 ink cost could be an effective ink sink here. Most of the boosts in this set I don't think are too worth it, but this guy might get another look. I'm going to give him a low B. Following that, we've got Cobra Bubbles, a 5-cost uninkable 3/6 that produces 2 lore when questing. He also says, whenever this character quests, chosen opposing character can't challenge and must quest during their next turn if able. This guy can shut down a challenger better than Rapunzel was trying to, especially given his body, and he makes the chosen character vulnerable for attacks if you want to. I'm going to give him a solid B. Next up is Copper, a 5-cost inkable 3/5 that produces 2 lore when questing, has Shift 3, and whenever this character quests, your characters with evasive get +1 lore this turn. In an evasive deck, this is your all-star powerhouse. The only way he could be better is if he had evasive himself. I'm giving him an A. Going on with Darkwing Duck, a 5-cost inkable 4/5 that produces 2 lore when questing. He also has Challenger +2, and during your turn, whenever an item is banished, this character gains Resist +1 until the start of your next turn. Given the number of items that banish themselves in this set, especially for cheap, this guy gets highly rated. I'd have to at least call him a B. And if you get enough of those items and Darkwing Duck support, he's a solid A. Hard to follow that one, but let's try with Marshmallow, a 5-cost uninkable 5/5 that produces 2 lore when questing. He says, whenever this character quests, each opponent can't ready more than one of their characters at the start of their next turn. An incredibly powerful shutdown that is absolutely one-sided. This is a solid A. I'm not even sure what else I would rate this. I'm pretty sure if you get this card, you just kind of win the tournament and everybody else goes home crying. Makes this last card feel a bit underwhelming, but here we go. Minnie Mouse, a 5-cost inkable 3/4 that produces 2 lore when questing. She's also got Ward. When you play this character, you may put the top card of your deck face down under one of your characters or locations with boost. If you do, draw a card. This is more boost support, but it doesn't do much in the rare slot, which you should be using to get your payoffs, not your support. I'm going to give this a D. Next up is Negaduck, a 5-cost inkable 6/5 that produces 1 lore when questing. He also says Shift 3, and whenever this character challenges another character, each opponent loses 1 lore and you gain 1 lore. Look, stealing lore is incredibly uncommon in this set. And if you can get the common Negaduck, you'll be able to get this guy out fast, basically rushing your opponent, and taking a 2 lore swing while hopefully banishing one of your opponent's characters. Given his body, I'd say this guy is worth a look whether you can shift him or not. I'm going to give him a high B. Rising up is going to be Pete, a 5-cost Inkable 5/5 that produces 1 lore when questing and has boost 1. And whenever this character quests, look at a number of cards from the top of your deck equal to the number of cards under him. Put 1 into your hand and put the rest on the bottom of your deck in any order. Card advantage is great in this set, especially because this is a late game card advantage, and hopefully balancing against any of the ways opponents may have messed with your hand. I'm going to give him a low B. Let's continue on with Piglet, a 5-cost Inkable 3/5 that produces 2 lore when questing, and has Shift 3, and at the end of your turn, remove up to 2 damage from each of your characters. Protecting your characters is great, and the low cost of 3 if you shift him is even better. I'm going to give him a low A, which is a solid A if you can get enough piglets. Sliding on down is Stitch, a 5-cost Inkable 4/5 that produces 2 lore. He also says, whenever this character quests, if you have 2 or more other characters in play, you may draw a card. Card draw is important and limited, as I've said before, and getting to draw cards for things you were already doing is great. Stitch still needs 2 other characters, so it doesn't help if you're behind, but I'll give him a low B. Moving on to Witches of Morva, a 5-cost uninkable 4/4 that produces 2 lore when questing, and says, when you play this character, you may return another chosen character of yours to your hand, and if you do, you gain 1 lore. Now, having a character return to hand sounds bad, but in Limited, where you don't always have cards to play, and in a game like Lorcana, where damage stays on the characters, returning to hand can be a good way to save a character from the discard, and you're rewarded for doing so I'm going to give her a B. Starting off our 6th-cost with Morgana Macabre, a 6-cost Inkable 6/6 that produces 1 lore when questing and has Shift 4. She also says, when you play this character, you may choose an opposing character and move 1 damage from each other character to them. In some cases, this will instantly remove an opponent's character, but in every case, this will protect yours. Gonna give her a high B. Let's move on to Willow Tweed, a 6-cost uninkable 2/8 that produces 2 lore when questing, and says, when you play this character, return a character card from your discard pile to your hand. If that character is named Todd, you may play him for free. Now this sounds good because it recurs a card, and if it's Todd, it's free. However, there's some better recursion in the rare slot. I'm going to call her a high C. Next up is Dr. Hamsterveal, an 8-cost Inkable 5/5 that produces 2 lore when questing. He also says, for each alien character card in your discard, you pay 1 less to play this character. And when you play this character, chosen opposing character can't challenge during their next turn. This is actually part of a cycle of 6 high-cost cards that reduce their cost based off of your current board state or some way that the game is going. Now, of that cycle in Limited, I would say that Dr. Hamsterveal is the weakest one. He has a specific character type that he needs you to be playing, and also his effect only targets 1 character that can't challenge. I'd give him a low C at best. The amber part of this cycle is Jumba Jukiba, an 8-cost Inkable 4/5 that produces 2 lore when questing, and says, for each character you have in play, you pay 1 less to play this character. And whenever this character quests, you may remove all damage from chosen character. Not only is this easier to achieve because it's for every character in play, doesn't have to be a specific character type, it also protects himself or protects other characters that you have in play. I'd give this one a solid A. Next up is Stegmutt in Emerald, an 8-cost Inkable 7/7 that produces 2 lore when questing, and says, for each item in your discard, you pay 1 less to play this character. And when you play this character, you may put 3 item cards from your discard on the bottom of your deck in any order. If you do, deal 3 damage to chosen character. In order to get this effect to go off, you need at least 3 items in your discard, which will make this a 5-cost 7/7 that produces 2 lore when questing, an incredible rate. Also, in this set, most items are cheap, small, and banish themselves. There's no way you're going to get this guy out for more than 5 ink. Guarantee it. I'm going to give him an A. I'm also going to say that he's probably the best one of this cycle. Following him is Eeyore, a 9-cost 5/5 inkable that produces 2 lore when questing, and says, for each exerted character in play, you pay 1 less to play this character. And when you play this character, for each opposing player, you may choose a character of theirs they can't ready at the start of their next turn. It's important to note he doesn't only care about your exerted characters, he cares about every exerted character in play. So if you have quite a lot, and your opponent has quite a lot, this guy could come in for relatively cheap. Even if your opponent only has 2 exerted characters and you have 2, this is a 5-cost 5/5 that produces 2 lore, and it keeps 1 character down from the 2 that your opponent would have had in that situation. I'd say he's a B. In the Ruby slot, we have Olaf, a 9-cost inkable 4/4 that produces 2 lore when questing, and says, for each action card in your discard, you pay 1 less to play this character. And when you play this character, each opponent loses 2 lore. There's not a lot of actions in this set, so I don't think you're going to be able to get his cost that much lower than maybe 6. But a 6 cost for a 4/4 that produces 2 lore and steals 2 lore from your opponent, granted you don't get to keep it, but they lose it, isn't that bad. I would say this is a B. Lastly, we have Grandma Tala, a 12-cost uninkable 6/6 that produces 2 lore when questing, and says, for each card in your inkwell, you pay 1 less to play this character. This is a card that gets cheaper for every card in your inkwell. But that's a problem. In Limited, I don't expect you to go that much higher than 6 or 7 in your inkwell, meaning this isn't going to be played for much less than 5 or 6. And a 5 or 6 cost vanilla 6/6 that produces 2 lore when questing isn't that impressive, especially not in the rare slot, and especially not considering the rest of the cards in this cycle. I'm going to consider this the worst card in this cycle, specifically in Limited, and I'm going to give it a low C, potentially a high D. Those are all of the characters in this set. Now let's go on to the locations, of which there is only 1. The Graveyard of Christmas Future is a 4-cost inkable location with 8 willpower that produces 1 lore each turn. It says, whenever you move a character here, put the top card of your deck under this location face down. And at the start of your turn, you may put all cards from underneath this location into your hand. If you do, banish this location. You could use this as a way to build up card advantage. Honestly, even getting 2 or 3 cards from this would be good, but there's not a lot of ways to protect it. I'm going to give it a C, but if you get enough location support, you should play it. Moving on to actions, we're going to start with Akud et Emuti. This is a 3-cost uninkable song that says you may pay 2 less for the next character you play this turn. Draw a card. Singing this is the only way it's useful, basically turning one of your characters into what can be called a mana dork, and it lets you draw a card. I'll give it a low B. Next is The Cold Never Bothered Me Anyway, a 3-cost uninkable song that says look at the top 4 cards of your deck. You may reveal a location card and put it into your hand, put the rest into your discard. You pay 3 less for the next location you play this turn. This is a good way to look for locations and make them cheaper, which is really good considering this set doesn't have a whole lot. So I'll give it a low B, maybe a high C. Next up is Do You Want to Build a Snowman? A 3-cost uninkable song that says chosen opponent chooses yes or no. If they choose yes, you gain 3 lore. If they choose no, they choose a character of theirs and put that card on the bottom of their deck. Here's the deal. You will always get the worst outcome of this card. Whichever one you want is the one your opponent will not pick. I'm going to call it a C. Next is Visiting Christmas Past, a 3-cost inkable action that says put any number of cards from under your characters and locations into your inkwell face down and exert it. This is going to turn any boost character you might lose soon into ink ramp. It's good in a boost heavy strategy, so I'm going to give it a low B. Up next is Freeze the Vine, a 4-cost inkable action that says banish all locations, draw 2 cards, then choose and discard a card. If your opponent is running a lot of locations in their deck, this is a great way to mess up their game. If not, that's still a good way to draw some cards. I'm going to give it a B. Let's get dangerous. A 4-cost inkable song that says each player shuffles their deck and then reveals the top card. Each player who reveals a character card may play that character for free. Otherwise, put the revealed cards on the bottom of their player's deck. Flavor-wise, this is a win, because it's dangerous. You should not play this. You should never play this. This is an F. Next up is Let It Go, a 5-cost inkable song that says put chosen character into their player's inkwell face down and exert it. This is a reprint of an old fave. It's a good way to remove a character that refuses to exert or has a huge body. It would be better if it was cheaper, but it should do the trick. I'm going to give it a B. That was it for our actions. Let's move on to our items with Containment Unit, a 2-cost uninkable item that says when you play this item, choose a character. They can't challenge or quest while this item is in play. And at the start of your turn, choose and discard a card or banish this item. This shuts down an opponent's character for at least a turn, and then you can either discard cards or banish it. It's fine, but a bit low for the rare slot. I'll give it a low C. Next is Darkwing's Chair Set, a 3-cost uninkable item that says, when you play this item, you may put the top card of your deck into your inkwell face down and exert it. And, exert, banish this item. Remove up to 2 damage from chosen character. If a character named Darkwing Duck is chosen, remove up to 4 damage instead. This ramps your ink and protects your guys. I'd give it a high C, but if you've got a lot of Darkwing Duck support, this is a B. Let's move on to John Smith's Compass, a 3-cost inkable item that says, at the start of your turn, if a character of yours challenged this turn, banish this item. And, at the end of your turn, if none of your characters challenge this turn, reveal the top card of your deck. If it's a character card with cost 3 or less, or named Pocahontas, you may put it into your hand. Otherwise, put it on the bottom of your deck. This is a good way to get lots of characters in a deck that doesn't focus on challenging. It also doesn't say you have to control a character, meaning it's a good way to rebuild your board, giving it an A. Continuing our 3-cost items with Magical Inkcaster, a 3-cost uninkable item that says exert and pay 3. Play a character with cost 5 or less for free. They gain rush, and at the end of your turn, banish them. I'm not sure if the full power of this card will be let out in Limited, but you'll be able to play your big beat sticks, which tend to be more removal than they are characters, and you get to play them for 3 instead of their usual cost. I'd give it a C. Then we have Kristoff's Loot, a 3-cost uninkable item that says exert and pay 2. Reveal the top card of your deck. You may play it as if it were in your hand. Otherwise, put it in your discard. This is basically a worse way to draw a card every turn, but it's pretty consistent and can be used every turn, so I'm going to call it a low B. Now we've got Retro Evolution Device, a 3-cost inkable item that says exert and pay 1. Banish chosen character of yours. Play a character with cost up to 2 more than the banished character for free. This is basically ramp, and an incredible way to play your bigger characters faster. Keep in mind you can exert the character you're going to sacrifice before using this card, so I'll give it an A. Swooping on in is the Thunder Quack, a 3-cost inkable item that says all opposing characters gain the villain classification, and exert. If a character was banished in a challenge this turn, gain 1 lore. Items that produce lore on their own are pretty rare, so that alone gives this a B. I'd also give this an A if you're running a lot of Darkwing cards, given they care a lot about challenging villains. We're finishing up the set with Battering Ram, a 4-cost inkable item that says exert, deal 1 damage to chosen character, or exert, banish this item, banish chosen location. You'll probably be using this to remove characters with some chip damage, but if an opponent plays an important location, this will be a good way to deal with that. Probably a high C. That's it for our Lorcana Winterspell Rare Review. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And always remember, have a great day, and I'll see you next time.